This
Say
is Jennifer.
something, Jennifer. That's cool. That's good. Okay, let's see if we can get this live. Hang on a second here. Okay, we're live on Facebook.
Awesome.
And let me see if we're live on YouTube. Okay. Okay, we are live everywhere.
The
So,
broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
If you can believe it. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Jennifer Woodward. I am the Executive Director of the AFGNP over at Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. I am here today with Dr. Al, and today we are talking about how to solve the crises that every health coach must face. Dr. Al, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and everyone should know that we just had our own little crises and we worked ourselves through it. So, this is living proof that no matter what you do, if you're in business, you're a health coach, you're going to have some crises. We're going to talk about that. Before we get started, Jennifer, let me just take care of a little business. Number one, everyone is here. Most everyone who's here is an FDN practitioner, or at least in the course. We have some people, flies on the wall, that are listening in. I want to reiterate that we're not selling anything. There is nothing to buy. If you're not already an FDNer, there's going to be a link in the chat that at any time you could click on, speak to a career counselor. You could do that now, later, tomorrow. That's totally up to you. But we will not take any questions about the course. This is not about selling the course. This is about how FDNs are the most successful coaches in the world. And these are things we do to help them become the most successful. Just for being here, even if just for 5 minutes, you're going to get a copy of this. And there's some great slides that you're going to see. So I suggest that if you came this far, you stay for the whole thing. But hey, that's up to you. You will get the replay. But I will tell you that you're going to learn here is going to be light bulb moments, so you want to take care of those. Jennifer, let's roll.
I love that. I love that. All right. So what are we talking about today? Well, like we said, are talking about the 5 crises that every health coach will probably face in their career. And let it be a lesson to all of us today. There are going to be crises that come in that you don't even know are going to happen. But here are some of the top 5 that we see pretty constantly as health coaches. Number 1, the client cancels on you. So you've set your appointment, you've taken some payment, and you're all excited to start this new coaching client relationship. And 5 minutes before your appointment is supposed to happen, the client texts you and says, I can't make it for whatever reason. That is a crisis moment, right? Number 2, the client does not accept your package price. At FDN, we talk all the time about what we should price our packages at, making sure that, we're accounting for all of the education we put in, all the time that we've spent, making it fair for the client and then also for the FDN. But what happens if the client says, nope, I'm not paying that? Number 3, the client demands their money back. And this is something, after you've been in practice for quite some time, you will have this moment. This will happen. And the feeling of the pit in your stomach never ceases to occur. The client will say, hey, I, wasn't happy with the services provided. I didn't like the lab work, whatever the reason is, there's going to be 100 of them. But every once in a while, your client will demand their money back. What do you do then? Number 4, no new client leads. Okay, now this happens to the best of us, right? You're humming along nicely. You've got 6, 7, 12 clients in your repertoire, and then you've got 2 or 3 months where you just hear crickets. There is nothing. You're on social media. You're talking to people word of mouth. Maybe you're even doing speaking engagements, but you've got 0 client leads coming through the pipeline. That is a big crisis, especially if you're, the primary breadwinner at your home, right? And then number 5, of course, this is something we never hope will happen, but it does happen because this is just we're all human, right? But the client doesn't get better. You've gone through your protocol, you've run the lab work, you've got the perfect supplements, you're on, the best rebalancing program that you can possibly put together. But what happens if your client claims they don't see any progress in their case? That's definitely a crisis that you will face as a health coach. So Dr. Al, do you want to add anything there? What do you think?
Yeah, I do want to add something to it. We're going to actually add some more crises to it. I'm going to guarantee you that everybody that's listening to this is going to have at least one of these, maybe multiple, and maybe have some we haven't even listed. But here's the key element here. The key element is that depending on where your business is currently at, how successful you are already, how long you've been a health coach, whether you're just starting or you've been an FDNer for a long time, will determine how big a crisis it actually is for you. And we're going to talk about that, because what might be a minor crisis for me, for somebody else might be, oh my God, I just lost 2 clients, which means half my business is out the window. So we're going to talk about it in terms of whether you are uber successful as an FDN, or you're really just getting your feet wet, and how to handle each one of those situations regardless of where you're at.
Absolutely. All right. So this is so much, about what we do at FDN, right? We run the labs. We are trained in the functional labs, and we become experts in disseminating those and getting that information to our client. But without lab testing, you can't do any of those things that clients really need you to be able to do. So without the lab testing, you're not able to meet your client expectations and needs. And their needs are to get to a practitioner that's different from every other practitioner they've seen. By the time somebody comes to visit an FDN and be a client of a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, they've gone to all the doctors, they've gone to all the health coaches, they've tried everything online and on Instagram, and they have different expectations and needs. Without that lab testing, you are unable to meet those needs of your client. Now, without lab testing, you're not looking at the whole picture of person. We do run 5 foundational labs at FDN. Those are what we're trained in. And we're constantly telling our community, run the labs. You've got to get all of those labs done, because if you're just looking at a gut test, if you're just looking at a hormone test, or if, God forbid, you're not looking at any of the tests, it's going to be really hard for you to get that holistic picture of what's going on with the metabolic chaos that's presenting with this client. And that's number 3, assessing metabolic chaos. And Dr. Al is going to go into metabolic chaos and what it is and how it really affects most of the clients that walk through your door. But without lab testing, neither can you assess that metabolic chaos, nor can you explain it to the client in a way that they understand, that makes sense of the symptoms that they are coming to you with. And then without lab testing, it's going to be impossible for you to create that personalized health building plan. And that's something that so many of our clients are frustrated with. They're fed up with that cookie cutter approach that other health coaches, that doctors, that Instagram gurus have put them through. They're ready for a personalized health building plan. And that's what the lab test helps us do. Right, Dr. Al?
Yeah, so this slide, I sort of call this slide owning what you do that nobody else does. We're going to talk about metabolic chaos. First, I want you to realize that every client that comes to you, no matter who they are, no matter who they've seen, they've been pre-programmed and trained that someone who's going to help them is going to do a lab test. If they go to an allopathic physician, they may run a blood test, a urine test. They go to you as a health coach. They're expecting you to run labs. If you don't run labs as a health coach, you basically are just another one of all the zillions of health coaches out there that really don't have the credibility. So lab testing gives you credibility, but most importantly, it helps you really meet the expectations of the clients. If you don't meet the client's expectations, you really can't charge them. And that's going to be a bigger crisis than any other crisis we go over. Now, that picture there that you're seeing is critically important, because you see all those ripples in the pond. When you throw a stone into a pond, it creates ripples. The only person who knows which ripple came first is the person who throws the rock. When they come to you, you didn't throw the rock. Chances are they don't know which was the first ripple either. They only know what symptom they have. Think of every one of those ripples as metabolic chaos. If you don't know which ripple came first, which one are you planning to treat? Well, you have to treat all of them, because you don't know which is the first ripple causing the others. And in reality, every ripple is related to every other ripple. So you must own that you do metabolic chaos. Nobody else does that. Most health coaches in this day and age are still dealing with symptom-based approaches. And let me tell you how wrong that is, so that if you ever say to a patient, it sounds like you have a leaky gut syndrome, it sounds like you have an adrenal problem, it sounds like you need liver detox. If you ever say that, I want you to, Oh, there's a
Yeah.
cute picture of
We're back.
your husband, I guess, and your wife. Oh, there you go. And you. So I don't know how that came in. Should I show a picture of my wife and me? No, I'm just
Nope.
kidding.
Moving the control
Okay.
pin. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
good deal. Okay, that's okay. So I want you to realize this. There's a company called Nutrisystems. They spend $250,000 a month on Facebook and advertising. Up until the pandemic, you know what they said? If you sign up for Nutrisystems, you're going to get a week's worth of gut-busting shakes. $250,000 a month they spend just on Facebook alone. Now, you know what they say? They say you're going to get a week's worth of immune boosting shakes. You know why that is? Because no one cares anymore about trivial things like I have an adrenal problem, I have a leaky gut, I'm bloated, I can't go to the bathroom. People want to know what their level of risk is. Am I high risk? Am I low risk? They want to know what their health is. Only FDNers can treat metabolic chaos. You have to own that, because if you don't own that, as I said, your biggest crisis is that you're not in business. You're just another health coach, and there are no health coaches that are up to the task of dealing with people's health challenges that they're facing now.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest crisis, right? Not being in business. We want to prevent that.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to the next slide here. So I'll just introduce this and let Dr. Al talk about, but here is the physiological aspects of metabolic chaos. And this is probably a review for a lot of you, but remember, we are the only ones who talk about metabolic chaos at FDN, right? So we are looking at the vital voids that our clients' bodies present with. And I love, Dr. Al, I love going over this, with my clients, because they start to see that every single issue they're presenting with is part of the bigger problem, right? They might come with some, glucose issues. They've got some autoimmune disease with that immune regulation. Maybe we find some heavy metals in one of our lab tests. They've got some gut issues, right? The mucosal surface integrity. But when they start to realize that all of these aspects of dysfunction are part of the bigger problem, which is metabolic chaos, it's a light bulb moment for them. They really start to take ownership of the process, and they realize, yes, my body is a whole, and I can start rebalancing it as a whole too. But we can't get there if we're not running the labs, right, Dr. Al?
Absolutely. So I'm going to make this one very simple, because realize this. Someone can come to you with all the symptoms of a thyroid problem, but that's just one ripple in the pond. How do you know that ripple is not a consequence of carb metabolism, which is on the opposite side? Do you notice that all those arrows have two heads going in each direction? Everything that you see is a ripple in the pond that contributes to metabolic chaos, and metabolic chaos then ripples out to all those. So as we said before, the only thing that you could do is treat every ripple, which means the only thing that will ever get people better is metabolic chaos. This is just another picture of the ripples that you saw in the previous slide.
Fantastic. All right, and now we get to discuss the medical director program. And we talked about how the lab testing really sets us apart at FDN. And the crux of that is the medical director program. So I am an FDN. I run labs through our MDP. And I have to tell you that it is one of the biggest benefits that we have at Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. In the course, you are trained on becoming an expert in these 5 foundational labs and more. And then when you graduate, you have access to the MDP. And the medical director program is how functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners order their labs. I liken it to an umbrella of safety, or a safety net, because we've got all these issues with health coaches today. Dr. Al, anybody can call themselves a health coach. No disrespect to the Isogenics reps, but they can call themselves health coaches, and FDNs are, technically a health coach. So where's the disconnect there? Like, one has years of training and one doesn't necessarily have that, right? If you are an FDN, you have access to the MDP, where you can elect to order all of your labs under the umbrella of a medical director. So we have MDs and DCs and DOs who are over our medical director program. So really what we do as FDNs is we facilitate the ordering of the labs. This keeps us very compliant. It keeps us in that safe lane using safe language, doing, health coaching techniques under the umbrella of that medical director program and the again, safety of the MDP. And what this does for your client is it helps meet their expectations and needs. We advertise ourselves as being experts in disseminating functional lab work. Well, the medical director program allows us to do that in a way that's really, it's congruent. We're all doing this together. Like, we have a whole team of people who run the MDP who are taking care of facilitating lab orders, answering questions. If you're like, well, where the heck is my lab test for Jane Doe? They're working on that constant communication between the labs, the FDN, and the clients. It's just a really seamless process that makes things really easy for the practitioner and helps set expectations for the clients. With the MDP, of course, we do recommend a series of tests. You guys are mostly familiar with the tests that we run at FDN. We've got a portal, which Dr. Al was just redone, actually. Our team's been working really hard at making our website look pretty nice. And so we've got a new MDP portal on FDN Connect. What the people, the way people ask questions about the MDP, they're like, well, I thought health coaches can't order labs. And that's actually true. And so what we teach you in the course and what we, actually do with the medical director program is facilitate it so your client receives the test kits, but they pay the lab. So you as an FDN are not ordering the labs, you're facilitating that process, and then the client pays the lab. But as the health coach, as the practitioner, you actually receive those test results, and then you set up the client consult, the review and recommendation session to go over whatever, test results you have. And that's really where the magic happens, right, Dr. Al? I know you're an FDN too, but getting those test result backs when we have like a results and recommendation session for our clients always gives me a little thrill because we're getting into the data, we're getting into what makes people bio-individual. And again, that's where a lot of buy-in from the client happens. And that's where they see the value of working with an FDN. What do you think, Dr. Al?
Well, first of all, realize that I'm licensed to diagnose. I could order labs from anywhere in the world, but most health coaches can't. You as an FDN have a privilege using this medical director program. It meets the expectations that we spoke about of your clients because you're running labs. They expect labs. The beauty of it is they don't pay you. They don't see you as an expense. The lab test is an expense for you. You have nothing to do with that. They're also used to paying labs. They're not used to paying the doctor for their lab work. So that fits in perfectly. So this is really the gold of being an FDNer. If you just joined us, I just want to just reiterate because I know some people are coming in late. Number one, if you're already an FDNer, which most people here are, this is really about the crises that you will face as any business, but particularly as being an FDNer. Number one, for being here, you will get a copy of this, even if you stay for 5 minutes. And we're not taking any questions about becoming an FDNer. There's a link, I believe, in the chat, both on Facebook, YouTube, and in GoToWebinar. If you have questions about that, connect with those people. We're not selling anything here. We're really training here. So the medical director program is what separates you from every other health coach out there. And which test do you want to order when you order a test? You order all of them. Why? Because you don't know which ripple came first in the pond.
Mm-hmm. Love that. I just love that analogy. And that's, that is what we do. We test, don't guess. I will never get sick of saying that. It makes so much sense for people when you say it to them. Clients that are coming to see you, test, don't guess. And then of course at FDN, we follow dress. So diet, rest, exercise, stress management, and proper supplementation. Dr. Al, do you want to explain a little bit more about what's going on this slide?
Well, this slide again, and this is really the beauty of this kind of training. Each one of these lab tests that you see in the list there of hormone, immune, digestion, detox, energy, and nervous system, that just ripples in the pond. So literally, this is nothing more of another type of representation of what you treat. You treat metabolic chaos, which is the only thing that people have. That's what they come to you for. That's why they don't get any results from anyone else. That's what separates you as an FDNer from everybody else.
Absolutely. And here it is. This is the money right here, Dr. Al, because we're talking about those crises that everyone would face, but we've also got other crises that are happening all the time, things you can't plan for. Everyone thinks, I'm going to have a client who might not get better. Everyone thinks, I'm going to have somebody who eventually haggles me for money. But does anyone ever think we're going to have a global pandemic and that's going to affect my health coaching practice? Or does anyone think the government is going to start shutting down some health supplement companies and putting bans on things like B12 or N-acetylcysteine, or some of the things that are happening right now, in the health coaching space? Those are new and, completely unexpected crises, right? So how does somebody process that?
Well, first of all, we gave you the first top five that Jennifer mentioned in the beginning, but certainly a pandemic could be added to that. Someone hacks a fuel line, and if you have a bricks and mortar business, no one can get to work. They want to wait online. What if your internet goes down, just like Jennifer's did early, and she couldn't restart her computer? What if you have a client that they have a lousy internet, and your whole business is based on being on the internet and working with them in a virtual space? Anything could happen, and I will tell you, it always will. So what we did was we broke down the 6 stages. When you get this replay, take a screenshot of this chart, because this is really the gold of this whole presentation. So here's what most people do, and I want you to see the difference here. On the lower part of this graph, do you see where it says practice collapse? That's going out of business. So that I want you to realize you don't want to go in that direction. The upswing on the right is having a hugely successful FDN business. That's the place you want to go. But here's how most people react to when a crisis, no matter what it is. A client cancels, you only have 2. Now half your business is out the window. Maybe you have a great business, you have lots of people, and they hit you with a pandemic, and now everyone's freaking out. I can't do this right now. I'm worried about this or worried about that. The first stage is what we call the shock, the freeze up stage. This is where people don't know what to do, so they literally do nothing. Their business is changing. They get hit by a crisis that they've maybe never had before, and they don't know what to do first, so they literally become a deer in headlights. They wind up in that fight or flight reaction, and they literally are just staring into space, and their business starts dropping towards the bottom where it says practice collapse. It is literally, it happens in every kind of business, because when you don't know what to do or someone throws you something you've never had to handle, if you're in business and you're young in business, or even if you've been in business a long time and someone hits you with a pandemic as an example, you don't know what to do, you absolutely do nothing. The worst thing that you could do is nothing. It doesn't change anything, and it makes you a victim of your circumstance. That's stage 1. Everyone goes through stage 1. I've been in practice for 40 years. I'm going to tell you that no matter how long you've been in business, no matter what that business is, things will happen that are going to knock your socks off, and you're going to go, and you're going to watch your revenue drop, your clients disappear, you're going to go down. That brings us to stage 2. Stage 2, you already realize, geez, that was stupid. I didn't do a thing. My business is falling apart, and I'm sitting around wondering, so I'm going to do this. And you're doing something that's an overreaction. When you overreact, notice which direction you're going in. You go further down that slope. Why? Because the reaction that you make is not based on strategy, common sense, or analysis. It's based on, oh my God, I didn't do anything. My business is falling apart. Let me try this. Let me try that. You're trying things that you have no idea the end result. It's not based on any kind of strategy. As I said, you go further down the tubes. Now your business is teetering, and this happens to every health coach. Every single health coach will deal with this. You as an FDN have a unique advantage. Why? Because you do things no one else does. That's why we spend time talking about metabolic chaos and talking about labs, because you have tools no one else has. If you have the tools, you can get out of a crisis. If you have no tools, you're just another leaky gut person. You have an adrenal problem. They've already heard that story. It's no good. So now we're at stage 3. What are you going to do in stage 3? In stage 3, again, most people overreacted wrong in stage 2, and the people don't know what to do. They don't do anything again in stage 3, or they find out, what should I do from who? From people who know what to do in a situation. Now, here's the beauty. We're going to talk about this a little bit. If you're an FDNer, and almost everyone here is, you have an entire team, an entire world population of people who've been through just about every crisis that you could hit. Who do you think you want to talk to about your certain situation to get an evaluation? You want to talk to the people that could tell you what to do. Jennifer, we have a list of who you shouldn't talk to. Do we have that list handy, or is that the next slide?
Oh, that's going to be here in a minute. So we'll get to that for sure.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good deal. That's great. Okay. So now you evaluate where you're at. You get advice from people who know what the hell they're talking about. And now you start to stabilize the ship. And now all of a sudden you'll see that you're developing a curve that's now going to change direction. Now, this is important because you'll notice that you start going up, you start making changes. We're going to talk about what you shouldn't do in a minute, but you start going up, and what happens is you're either making those choices randomly or based on the evaluation of those people who are FDNers who know about what's going on. You're either doing that or you're making what we call a strategic rebound. Now, this is a critical point in the graph. You'll notice that in stage 4, you either go right off the precipice and you see that arrow pointing down, or what most people do, and this happens in the stock market. I'm only mentioning that because I know Jennifer's husband's a stockbroker, and so she can identify with this. What happens is if people buy a stock and it starts going down, they start freaking out. They're emotionally involved. They wait till the stock gets back to what they paid for it, and then they sell it. And those are the weak holders of a stock. And what happens in the stock market is when they get rid of the weak holders, the stock goes through the roof and people make millions of dollars on them. But the weak players, they just want to get back to break even. Most businesses in the health coaching world at best will get to where they were in stage 1. They'll get knocked back on their butt at stage 4, and the whole process will start all over again. That means you never get anywhere in your business. You're a health coach for 10 years, you're still not making any money. You're a health coach for 10 years, you still haven't increased your client base. You're a health coach for 10 years, you're still doing the same stuff that didn't work for the last 10 years, but you're hoping, praying, now it's going to happen for me, but it doesn't, and you fall off that cliff again. But if you know the direction and you take your tools at FDNer, all of a sudden now you go to stage 5, and all of a sudden your business kicks in. You become better and stronger than any health coach business could ever be because you have the tools as an FDNer. You recognize what those tools are. You get advice from people who know what's going on in the world, and all of a sudden you hit stage 6 and your business explodes. And no matter what crises comes along, and they will, you now have a pattern, and you know, I'm not going to just freeze. I'm not going to make a bad decision. I'm going to evaluate. I'm going to speak to the right people, and I'm going to keep my business in an upswing the way it's supposed to go. Make a screenshot of this chart. It is really golden.
It really is. I mean, I was feeling pretty depressed there at stage 4, Dr. Al, where you were going stage 5 and stage 6. That's where it's at, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, there are people who their business is depressing. They don't really have a business. It's always depressing, unfortunately. And that's what this really tells you.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So, Dr. Al, I'm going to let you talk on this because you just have a great way of looking on this. But what is the very, very worst thing you can do to save your business? And first, on the last slide, you said, inaction is definitely one of the worst things you can do to, quote, save your business. But the other worst thing you can do is discounting your fees, Dr. Al. Why is that the case?
Well, there's a number of reasons, but the first thing is if what you do is really important for the client, and what you do in a pandemic is probably more important for that client than any other thing they could do because you're probably the only one that can make them healthier. The reality is discounting your fees says to them, well, maybe what I'm doing for you isn't that important. I'm willing to discount my fees. And the second thing is, you don't know what to discount them. What's the magic number that client's going to go, okay, a 50% discount, I'll stick with you. Maybe I only could pay 10% of what you were charging. No, they're going to say, obviously, in a time of crisis, when my health is of major concern, instead of you telling me the importance of what you do and how that's going to help me, your first line of defense is, well, how about if I cut my fees in half? That already tells them you're not the right practitioner. You should be telling them what you do is more important now than it was before. They need you now more than ever. The most important investment they can make right now in this situation they're in is to stick with you and get as healthy as they can, become as low risk as possible. So the impression you leave by discounting your fees by some random amount literally destroys the value of what you do. And realize this, people only pay you for the value they see in the services you offer. So the money is not the problem, it's the value. You already say to them, what I do doesn't have any value. As a consequence, I'll discount my fees. It is the worst thing that you could do. The second thing is, you can't go the other way. Now you discounted your fees and now you're stuck. Now you set yourself a new fee. You know, one of the things that I mentioned, something called the contrast principle. I'm just going to talk about that for a second and then I'll get off of this, Jennifer. Most people don't know what the contrast principle is, but for some reason we have a fly in the house here. Anyway, so if a fly lands on my nose, I don't know what to say about that. Wasn't there somewhere in one of the political debates a fly landed on someone's nose? I don't remember.
Probably.
Anyway, wasn't that true?
Anyway. I'm assuming so. Okay, tell us.
Yeah, I don't remember who there was. Anyway, so the contrast principle is this. If you take two people, one person you put their hand in a bucket of scalding water, and with the other person you put their hand in a bucket of freezing water, and then you say to both of them, take your hand out, I want you to put your hand in this bucket, and this bucket is room temperature water. The person who had their hand in the really hot water is going to tell you, oh my God, that water is so cold. The person who had their hand in the freezing water is going to go, oh my God, that water is so warm. So the contrast principle always is you value something based on your experience of where you come from. That happens in everything in life. I'll give you an example of another contrast principle. You go and you buy a car, and the car's $30,000, and they say, would you like the undercoating? Well, that's only $200. You go, well, I'm spending $30,000. The contrast is, what's $200 when you're spending $30,000? In the health coaching business, when you price your thing out, some people like to start with, let me start with this inexpensive, I'll run one lab test. Oh my God, you're thinking of I'll save the client money. First of all, we know it's metabolic chaos. Which ripple you're going to be ordering that test for? You're going to fail no matter what you do. So you never do that because once you start with a low price, they compare the other prices of what else you're going to add to the package based on that little price. When you start with the price you need to charge, when you add something small to it, the contrast principle is, well, sure, I'd throw that in too. I want that also. When you are in a crisis where you think your first reaction is to discount your fees, you just created a contrast for that person that you'll never recover from. Never, ever discount your fees. Tell them why it's more important to stick with the fees that you did and why it's more important for them to work with you now.
Dr. Al, I love that. And I just, I want to bring forth what probably a lot of people are thinking, in something like a pandemic, a lot of us practitioners are like, well, I just want to help people. I want to make my services available to more people. I know people are suffering financially, but really the best way you can help people is being a practitioner that provides value. You don't have to devalue yourself to provide value to your clients. And Dr. Al, I think you had a great story too about some jewelry sitting in a store, people's perceived value of what they're purchasing, is very important. But at the end of the day, you also cannot put a price on health. And I know that's kind of an esoteric concept to people because they're like, well, I guess you can, but really when you explain to people that, you're going to maybe invest right now this small lump sum, but later it's going to be saving you all of these health bills and costs associated with, chronic illness and really metabolic chaos that's run rampant. There's not a way to put a price tag on that. And you have to be confident of that as a practitioner. What you're offering people is really priceless, right?
Yeah, and two very fast stories, because I just think they're good stories, and since you mentioned it. So you pour 2 glasses of wine, the exact same wine. You tell someone this is a $10 bottle of wine, this is a $99, from a $99 bottle of wine. They're both the same bottle of wine. You give them 2 glasses, they taste this glass, they taste this. Oh God, I could tell right away the $99 bottle of wine is just much better wine. It's the same freaking wine, but you've created the value in
bottle.
Same bottle. So the story, the jewelry story is this, and this is actually a true story. So someone owned a store on a beach in a beach town. They were selling turquoise jewelry, and they actually picked up this jewelry at a great price. So they wanted to sell it, and they could not sell it. No one would buy it. So they said, the owner of the store called up the salesperson and said, listen, you know that display we have in the middle of the store? I want you to put all this turquoise jewelry in that display and sell it. And they did. They loaded it up, and the owner of the store called, said, how's it going? They said, we didn't sell one piece of jewelry. So they said, what I want you to do, cut all the prices in 2, and let's move, just get it out. Well, the salesperson, when they said 2, they thought they said double the price. So they literally, this is a true story, they doubled the price on every piece of jewelry. Within a week's time, they sold every piece of jewelry. People just thought that the jewelry was much better than it actually was because they doubled the price. The same thing, it's all an emotional experience of value. Never devalue what you do. And last story is, which I've told in the past, I'll make it very quickly. I don't care there's a pandemic. I don't care what you think people's financial situations is. If their pet or their child was to get sick, they would sell their spouse. They would give up the car. They would find the money no matter what it is, because the value to them of saving that pet or saving that child is worth more than anything. They have to see what you do in their life is that important. It's that simple.
Totally. Dr. Al, I actually heard you tell that story in like 2016 while I was going through the course, and it made such an impression on me that people will pay for what's important to them. And as FDN practitioners, we provide what is important to people, which is their health. So that really resonated with me, 5, 6 years ago. I love it.
Amazing, right?
Let's go. Okay. Okay. Now, so we've told you a little bit about, the curve, what could happen to your business. And during the course of a crisis, you're going to be really tempted to seek counsel from people. It's natural, for someone who's in peril to go seek help. But we want to give you a little of our own advice, whose advice you should never listen to, and then whose advice you should listen to. And this is something, again, we're all tempted to do. But if you are trying to save your business, you're trying to save particularly your functional diagnostic nutrition business, don't listen to a non-FDN practitioner. If someone's trained at another health institute, if someone has got their health coach certification, in a weekend class online, they don't know what you know. They don't know what we know at FDN. So don't listen to their advice. It does not hold up in court. Other health coaches, again, in that same vein, people in other health coaching certifications, they've got great strengths. We are not knocking any of those other health coaching certification processes. But what we have with Metabolic Chaos and the MDP and all of the labs really provides a very different set of value to the clients who are coming through your door. You should never listen to Dr. Google. Raise your hand if that's been you. All right. We've all been there. We're just like searching in quick fixes for whatever problem we're experiencing at the time. But I'm telling you, that will never work out well for you. And same with social media. I mean, there's so many different avenues and different camps of people in the social media space who are giving you unsolicited advice all the time. So naturally, you're going to think you want to turn to some of those, people and gurus during times of crises. Don't do it, guys. Do not do it, especially if they're selling something. And on that note, it's going to be, people selling MLMs. And, again, we're not knocking MLMs, but honestly, those people, they've got an agenda, right? They're trying to build their own businesses, and they usually don't align with functional diagnostic nutrition principles, which is metabolic chaos, the ripples in the pond, getting to the root cause, and then of course, bio-individual feedback based on the lab data. And I've never seen an MLM product that does all of those things. So don't listen to the advice of people posting all their pictures on social media and selling an MLM product. It's tempting to want to listen to the advice of your family or friends because maybe your dad started his own business, or maybe your brother-in-law, has a really successful construction company, right? But those people are not who you should listen to because, again, they're not doing FDN. And then finally, anecdotal evidence. Everybody's got a story, everybody's got an armpit or two and they all stink, right? You don't need to listen to anecdotal evidence from people around you if they're not familiar with the process. This is a really particular specialized subset of, functional nutrition that we do at FDN. And so it's really important for you to push into the community, the resources and the experts that are available to you as an FDN practitioner. Right, Dr. Al?
Absolutely. The first question you should ask anybody that you're asking advice, remember, you're froze in stage 1. Number 2, you have a reaction because you froze, you're going further down the tube. Stage 3 is the critical stage. You're now at the bottom of that curve. What you do at stage 3 is going to determine if you're going to be a health coach any longer or not. It's critically important. And the reality is, the first question you should ask anyone is, what do you know about metabolic chaos and how long have you been doing it? And if they don't tell you they've been in FDN for a very long time doing metabolic chaos, thank them and go the other way. Quick story, really quick. I like to tell stories.
I love it. Tell away.
Yeah. So anyway, I invented an exercise device 20 years ago. I had my own television commercial. I raised $6 million. And I worked with Eric Stilson, who did all the Bowflex commercials, which were very, very famous. And that company sold for $750 million. And I had angel investors who gave me $6 million. Well, the angel investors decided they were going to ask their family and friends what they thought of the commercial. Now, did you ever know anyone in your mind when you're asked their opinion that they say, gee, I don't know that much about making TV commercials. I've never made one, so I probably shouldn't give you. No, they tell you everything they think is wrong with the commercial because they want to sound like they know what they're talking about. If you ever looked into brain-based marketing, some of the research that uses functional MRI, you will know, as a quick example, when they sat down with a group of people and played a Barry Manilow song. I don't know if that name rings a bell to anyone, but Barry Manilow, everyone said, oh God, that's so schmaltzy. I would never buy one of his records. Well, they wired all those people up to a functional MRI, which showed what their brain was lighting up. And it said, people will buy this guy's albums. The part of their brain is lighting up is the pleasure centers. And they're telling you, no, I would never buy that album. It sounds like schmaltz. Well, they didn't listen to those people. They went by the functional MRIs, brain-based marketing. And Barry Manilow, of course, was hugely successful. Never ask anyone's opinion who's not in a position, because they'll give it to you. And like you said, they all stink.
That's right. That is a great, great story. I love it. Well, let's talk about whose advice you could realistically listen to because they are trustworthy. My mentor, Reed Davis. Guys, I love it. We have this FDN founder and helper dude. If you know Reed, that's probably how he'd describe himself that way. He's a helper dude, right? This guy has run thousands of labs on thousands of people. And I remember him saying this like so many times. He set out to be the very last person that patients needed. They've been to every other practitioner. They've been to Dr. Google. They've been to their mom. They've been to their brother, right? They don't have the answers that our clients are looking for. And Reed devoted his life really to working with the leaders in alternative medicine. You guys, to this day, I can go around to anyone in the functional nutrition space, which I do because I get to run webinars like this. You bring up the name Reed Davis and everyone's like, oh, Reed, yeah. And most people say, Reed, I love him. They know Reed, and Reed, so he's trustworthy, he's amicable, right? And he's done the work. Like, he has put this in, like we said, thousands of tests on thousands of people. And he was able to use his observational skills to see who got better and who didn't, and what was the correlation there? Like, what was similar, what was different? He really set out to be one of the first health detectives, and now we at FDN really get to benefit from that, because he developed not only FDN but also our patented dress for health success. And I love explaining that program to my clients, because it's a visual that they get. And I always hold up 5 fingers and I call it the dress for health success protocol. And we go over diet and rest and exercise and proper supplementation and stress management. And I'm able to really, bring it home for my clients too, telling them, Dr. L, like, diet is really sexy, right? Like, supplements are really sexy. People are like, give me a pill, give me the autoimmune paleo protocol. I can do that. But I tell my clients, that's only 20% of our protocol. Diet's important, but it's only 20%. Just like metabolic chaos, just like the ripples in the pond, we are not doing one single thing here at FDN. We're working on this whole Dress for Health Success program based on the results of the functional labs that we run. So what we're able to do is really teach, like really get into the trenches and teach health professionals how to fill the needs gap, ending the cycle of trial and error for themselves and their clients. And, as we know, most of us got into this FDN space because we were working on our own health issues. I've been working on my own health issues now for 20 years. And so getting to practice that on yourself and then extrapolate all of that to your clients for their benefit is like life-changing for you as a practitioner and your clients as well, and your business. And Reed practically invented distance coaching. So as I sit here in my office/bedroom, having to move out of my own brick and mortar this last year for the pandemic, my practice is now fully online. Most of my clients are here in my town in California, but I'm mostly doing distance coaching. I'm doing Zoom meetings for them. And Reed was able to kind of spearhead that, as he's been doing this for so long. So we know what you're going through. We got your back, and we definitely have the expertise and the legwork to back up the advice that we're going to be giving to you. Right?
Here it is. You're in stage 3. You're at the bottom of that slope. You want to listen to somebody who's done 10,000 tests, or you want to listen to somebody who's done no tests? It's that simple. You have a history here of expertise. You listen to the people. You're an FDNer. You do things that no one else does. If you're not an FDNer, you need to be asking yourself why, but that's a subject for another time. But you follow people who have the knowledge and experience to take you through that slope and bring you up to the growth that you're trying to really achieve.
Amen. Dr. Al, don't you love this picture of the helper dude with his shirt down to like the 3rd button? I feel like those are my favorite pictures of Reed. Sometimes we'll hop on a meeting. He's like, oh, I got to put one more button up on my shirt.
That's when he's wearing a shirt.
Yeah, right. That's right. And speaking of, FDN, really, let's give an example of whose advice you should listen to. You guys are not dummies. Like, we're going to say, listen to us at FDN. And it's not because we're narcissistic. It's because we've put in the work and we've got the structure in place to actually be certain that we can support you as you're going through those crises that you will inevitably face as a health coach. So this is my wheelhouse. This is my jam. I love getting to serve at AFGNP, which is the Association of FDN Professionals. And after you graduate the course, we want you to come in and join the family on the professional side. So Reed always says, AFDNP is for those who, don't necessarily want to use FDN as a hobby, but as their profession. So it's something I do myself. I use it as my profession, and it's something I get to mentor, other FDNs through. And it's fantastic. We've got all these webinars. So every single week, we're doing at least one webinar that is targeted, pulling leaders from the functional health community into our community to share with you, to teach you. We go over aspects of dress. We go over different, supplement companies and business building resources and different, really like cutting edge functional nutrition research and whatever is going on out there in the functional space. We're observing that. We're curating, these great webinars for you and bringing in those speakers so you can sit with them every single week and learn from the best. We've got our Pro Series, we've got our Strictly Business, and that's huge this year. We've really been working at AFGNP to give you those resources you need to build your business. I've been, making sure that you've got emails and landing pages and videos and, very curated materials that can help you really start building your business in a weekend. All right. And then we provide for you all of the peripheral things that you are going to need to feel really confident in building your business. We've got Detective Hour, which is one of my favorites. We offer that twice a month where you are sitting with clinical advisors who have been, these guys literally go over lab tests 4, 5, 6 times a day as part of the MDP, the Medical Director Program advisory program, where you run a lab on your client. Maybe you don't know what the heck is going on with your GI map or why your client's still experiencing some of these symptoms. And you're worried that the crisis is coming where they don't get better or they're going to ask for their money back. But with things like Detective Hour, you can bring those cases to our clinical advisors, and these really experienced professionals can walk you through what's going on in your labs and how you can start, presenting a case and curating a protocol for your clients. You get wholesale product accounts, and this isn't only for the United States. We've got an international community, and so we're constantly trying to provide resources, not only for people practicing in America, but also Canada, in the United Kingdom. We've got, I think, just opened a Diem with Switzerland and the Netherlands. Like, we've just got some really great far-reaching resources to support you in wherever you're at in your business and wherever you're at in the world. We've got wholesale lab accounts. You do get discounts on insurance. That's a question I get all the time. Do I need insurance? And yes, you do. And we teach you how to walk through that and make sure that you're covered so that you feel safe and your business is protected. We've got this incredible, you guys, I think most of you here are actually, either FDNs or AFGNP members. And I think you would probably agree with me that our Facebook group is incredible. Dr. Al, our Facebook group is 550 members strong. I cannot keep up with all the chatter that's in there. We're constantly going over lab tests, like the minutia of the lab tests, different, imbalances and issues that our clients are having. And we've got 3 clinical advisors in there every single day answering those questions for people who have them. So you pretty much get your questions answered right away. And that's one of the biggest perks of being part of the FDN family. We've got research and development projects. Holy smokes, you guys. We are constantly getting bombarded with people who want us to, use their supplement or their program or their product. And we've got a really robust research and development team. I've gotten to be part of it on a few occasions. And it's super exciting to think that you're on the cutting edge of what's going on in functional medicine and functional nutrition. And then, of course, our weekly e-newsletter. I write one of them myself. Not my forte, but it's really fun to do, to get to, really inform the community. And this whole list is a great, again, holistic picture of what you get when you're part of the FDN community. So you've got people who've built businesses, people who are running thriving businesses, people who've survived now a pandemic and, a gas shortage and the government cracking down on N-acetylcysteine. You've got people who've built their practice from the ground up and have weathered every type of storm, both alone and as part of a community. And so you always have those resources that are available to you as an FDN. Oh, and then Dr. Al, I forgot to say, and now we've got our Clubhouse. You guys, we are so hip. We are in Clubhouse too. Do you know about Clubhouse, Dr. Al?
I do, actually. I'm on Clubhouse myself. So I just want to say, I just want to say this. There's a lot of stuff here. As an FDN, this is what I want you to do. I want you to make a list of what you do and what you have that nobody else has. You do Metabolic Chaos, write that down. No one else does that. You run lab tests, no one else does that. You have a leader who's done over 10,000 tests, no one else can say that. You have the Association for FDN Professionals, write that down. The reason you want to write those things down is because when you run into the crises, when you are in a situation where you're starting to go down, you have to literally say to yourself, okay, let me stand back. I have a huge support team. I have the best training in the business. I have the best tools, the best skills, and realize that you have the best support for you to be able to go where you want. So breaking all these things down is great, but you have to take part in hitting all these things, using all these things, participating in all of these things. Keep that list, because when a crisis hits, you're going to need that list to snap you out of becoming paralyzed by the circumstance you get yourself in. And remember, I said, for some of you, it might be as simple as 2 clients quit. Now half my business is out the window. Someone might be asking for money back that you don't have. The level of crisis is really dependent on where you're at in your business. So what might be a huge crisis for you might be a drop in the bucket for somebody else, but they will have something in their business that's as big a crisis to them. So own the fact that you do something no one else does and have the support that nobody else does.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So, oh yeah, and we do want to talk about this, how do we help people change? How do we change our clients, and how do we make change in our own business? So Dr. Al, will you explain that a little bit to our community?
Yeah, so I'm going to do this really, really quickly because I know we're running out of time. So number one, realize this. When someone comes to you, most likely they've come to you from seeing a number of health coaches who all say the same thing. You have leaky gut, you have an adrenal problem, you have sounds like thyroid, all those things. None of them do metabolic chaos but you. That's number one. When they come to you, they have some expectation. What is their expectation? Their expectation is that you're going to give them something or do something that's going to take away their problem. That is a false expectation, and it fails every single time. So I always say to a client, do you think that you have some rare disease that no one will ever be able to cure for you? And they immediately say no. No, I definitely don't. Well, then I always say, well, why is it that you've been to 3 health coaches and you've been to 2 medical doctors and no one's gotten you better? And they don't know the answer to that. And I'm going to tell them this is why that is. You have an expectation that somebody's going to give you something or do something to make you better. They have an expectation they're going to be that person that's going to give you something or do something. But here's what you need to understand. The only people that has the health challenge that you have are people that have a functional problem. There's a dysfunction. People who function properly don't have your problem. You only have one problem. You have a dysfunction, but you're lucky because functionality is what I do best. That's why we're called functional diagnostic nutritionists. We specialize in making people function better. You simply have a dysfunction. What we're going to do is make you function better. When you function better, your challenges, your problems are going to go away. And you shake your head. Do you understand? And they do. They think finally someone understands what the problem was. And in fact, now they only have one goal in mind. Make me more functional, because I know when I get to be more functional, I will feel better. And they run around, become evangelists for you. They run around and say, finally, somebody knows what's wrong with me. I have a functional problem. And I'm going to tell you, everyone with a health challenge has a functional problem. That's the reality of the world. The symptoms don't matter. The symptom is the ripple they came into your office with. Those ripples have no value because you need to treat all of them. But every single person that comes to you has the same functional problem. It's called metabolic chaos. And you, as an FDN practitioner, are the only people in the world that can fix that for them. My God, that's worth gold. Whatever you're charging, double it.
Yeah, triple it. It's true. It is true. So yes, what we do is coach up vital reserve and coach down metabolic chaos, just like we've been talking about here. How do we do it? We do it through a dress protocol, right? And like Dr. Al said, we are the only people that can do it in this particular way. And what happens? Our clients get better, and they get better faster, right, Dr. Al?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, here we go. So here's something that we have just begun to offer for our community. We've always had board certifications like the AADP, so the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. You can become a holistic health practitioner. If those, those oversights and also those letters behind your name are important to you, do it. But this year, we've also brought in some other really great board certifications. Now we are aligned with the American Association of Natural Wellness Coaches and the American Natural Wellness Coaches Board. I myself picked up a certification, passing my board exam this year, of board certified functional wellness coach. We are approved for CEUs with the Czech Institute and the NTA. And recently, I don't think this is a secret, but we are starting to go through the process that we need to become NBHWC certified. That is the gold standard of coaching. So you can learn, you can earn credibility, you can get board certified after you get your FDN, and we are definitely approved for CEUs if you're outside of FDN and you are part of NAMP, NTA, and the Czech Institute.
The only thing I'll say about this is these certifications you really get because it makes people feel better about you. You still do the same thing. They don't change what you do, because what you do is the key. I have a lot of things that I'm certified in. I have diplomates in neurology, diplomates in exercise rehabilitation. I still do the same thing. It doesn't matter. People feel, oh, wow, he's got all this stuff, but it doesn't really matter. I still do the same thing. And you do the same thing. That's important. But the certifications are great. Yeah.
They're a fun icing on the cake, that's for sure. So here's what we have for you guys. Number one, we are going to be back on Thursday, Dr. Al, and hoping my computer will work a little bit better this time. But this is what we have for you today, and we're not selling anything. But Dr. Al, tell them, if they're a current student or a grad, or if they are
Okay. So two things. Realize that you're going to get a copy of this and save that graph because it's gold. It really walks you through everything you need to know. We covered a lot of stuff. And as you could tell, and Jennifer and I kidding about this, but you could tell this wasn't rehearsed. We just go anywhere. So we're doing this again on Thursday. We're actually doing it again also on Saturday morning early. There'll always be new stuff that we didn't add in, so you'll get a little different spin. We'll have some more great stories. But realize the whole point of this whole thing is that if you already are an FDNer, which almost everyone here is, whether you've graduated or you're in the program, you just go to FDNconnect.com. You can access everything you need. If you're not an FDNer, you should be, and you could just go to FDN.today/career, make an appointment to speak to a career counselor. They'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm sure we're not doing that today. You're going to get, and along with your replay, by the way, you're going to get a survey that we need you to fill out. And here's why we need you to fill it out. Number one, it tells us what we can do in our training to help you be more effective. So we use it for that. Don't blow it off because it's really for you. I mean, ultimately, what you need, what you feel you want, that's what we want to share with you. So ultimately, make sure you fill out that survey. Don't blow it off. We'll see you Thursday at 12 o'clock. Pacific time, 3 o'clock my time on the East Coast. We're going to try to keep it as close to 30 minutes as possible. It always takes a little longer the first time we do it. You will get new stuff, and you're welcome to join us again. We find that most people attend all 3 sessions that we do, but we do them for your convenience, but you'll get some great stuff and new stuff on Thursday, and you'll get some new stuff on Saturday. So I think that really covers everything, Jennifer.
Love it. And Dr. Al, I'm going to ask you about the Summer of Love on Thursday. So if you guys want to hear Dr. Al talk about that, you better come back and join us then. But thank you for being with us today. And
very funny.
We'll see you guys next time.
Have a great night. Okay, let me shut down the YouTube side. Number one, we'll get rid of that and stream. And we're going to shut down